Broadcasting from Swanson Studios, you're watching Mustang News.
Hello, and welcome to Mustang News TV. I'm RJ Pollock, and joining me today is San Luis Obispo City Council candidate Mike Boswell. Boswell has lived in San Luis Obispo for the past 26 years. He is a member of the Regional Planning faculty at Cal Poly and has been the City and Regional Planning Department Chair for 2 terms. Boswell has conducted research on the climate crisis and ways cities can reduce their carbon footprint. Thank you, Mike Boswell, for taking the time to sit down with Mustang News. So, to begin the interview today, I wanted to ask, what motivated you to run for City Council this year?
Yeah, as you noted at your top, I've been in San Luis Obispo for 26 years. I really love this city. When I first came here, I came here to be a professor at Cal Poly. That's how I first came to know of Cal Poly and San Luis Obispo is when I went on the job market as a professor. Didn't know if I would stay here, had never been to SLO, but I really fell in love with this place. And so my wife and I have had a wonderful time here. The community has given us so much, and so I saw this as an opportunity to give back to the community of San Luis Obispo. And the timing has worked out well for me in terms of where I'm at in my career, in my personal life. So I'm committed to service, and so I see this as a great opportunity for serving the citizens of SLO.
Absolutely. So I guess in preparation for this election cycle, what have you been doing personally or with your team to kind of get ready to run in November?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never run for public office before, so this was all new to me. Understanding the legal framework about running for office, learning how to fundraise, how to do campaign marketing, how to do canvassing. All this has been a very interesting learning experience. I love to learn new things. It's very exciting. So it's been fun, but it's also been stressful because I've been out of my comfort zone, right? I mean, my day job is to be a professor. I have been on a city appointed board before, but the notion of being a candidate and running for city council, that's a very new and different experience. So we've just been trying to get out there and do all the right things in terms of putting together information about myself and materials to as flyers and marketing, and when I go and speak to different community groups. I've been out there knocking on doors, call it canvassing, but basically knock on doors, talk to folks in the community, introduce yourself, tell them what you stand for and what you believe in, take questions from them, doing that sort of thing. And then of course, doing all the behind the scenes paperwork around fundraising and filing and reporting with the state. But it's been a fun experience, but I'll look forward to when the campaign part is over, and if I am lucky enough to win the seat, I look forward to doing the business of a city council member.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine how much work it is going door to door and filling out that paperwork and just rallying support behind what you stand for and what you're going to hopefully do for our community. And knowing that as well, San Luis Obispo has a really significant large student population at Cal Poly and the surrounding communities with Cuesta and other colleges around. But mainly focusing in San Luis Obispo here, what are your plans to secure the college voter?
Yeah, so obviously I am very familiar with Cal Poly and with Cal Poly students, having been a professor here for 26 years. So I've always been concerned about the success of my students, obviously, but also their health and well-being. So of course, when I'm in class, you talk about the normal things you talk about as a professor, but you also really get, as you know, at Cal Poly, particularly with Learn by Doing, we spend a lot of time with students. I teach studio, or I spend a lot of time with students. I really come to know them personally and what their lives are like and what their struggles are, and so I think a lot about that. Of course, in my role at Cal Poly, that's one role I play in trying to help them and making sure they understand what Cal Poly has to assist them, whether it's with financial issues or with success in the classroom issues or those kinds of things. But this will be a change for me in terms of really, although I've thought about it a lot, be a real change for me of being in a position where I can also, as a city council member, think about what we can do from the city's perspective to make the student life experience better. I know I talk to students all the time about issues around housing, for example, issues of traffic safety, Those are some of the big ones. Of course, the relationship with your neighbors. I've lived for many, many years in a very student-oriented neighbors. I had Cal Poly students all around me. I found it to be a positive experience. I got along well with them, and we developed a relationship even in the neighborhood. So I'll be looking at some of those issues. And those issues that I mentioned, I think, are issues that are relevant to everybody in the city, but I'll also be thinking about them from that perspective of the student lens. So I think when I'm speaking with student groups like today, or in some of the other activities that I'm doing as part of the campaign, those are the kinds of issues I'll talk about. And they're very meaningful to me because I'm also a person who, spends my day at Cal Poly most of the day. So things like traffic safety, getting to and from campus, it affects me personally, but I also know it has a huge effect on the student body.
Absolutely. And as someone who commutes to campus on my bike too, that is of large importance to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a daily bike commuter. Occasionally take the bus, occasionally drive, but for 26 years, most days I get to campus on bike. Yeah. So it's been really great, for example, that the city was able to get the new bridge in over the railroad tracks, so that if you're coming kind of from the downtown area, now you can get on the bike trail along California and come all the way into campus without ever having to be on the street.
Fantastic. So you already touched on it a little bit too about some of what you're hoping to do if elected. But what are some issues that San Luis Obispo is facing right now that you can see that you want to address once elected?
Yeah, I've been campaigning on. I have a lot of interest, but I've been campaigning on a few key issues that are really very important to me. Protection of open space, traffic safety, as I mentioned, housing and homeless issues, and climate change. So I can just say a little bit about each of those, and if you want to follow up, I can get into more detail. On the issue of open space, our image sitting here behind us, right, really tells the story. One of the reasons SLO is an incredible place is the natural beauty that surrounds us, and that's provides both recreational opportunities, but also is an important part of conserving our natural resources in our community. SLO has done a great job at protecting this resource. We have what's called a Greenbelt program that's intended to protect these lands, but that Greenbelt program is not complete, and so one of my priorities is to continue to make sure that we make progress towards completion of our Greenbelt program and strategy. Second issue that's important to me is traffic safety and safe streets. As I said, I'm pretty much a daily bike commuter. I live on the south side of town, so I'm coming all the way across the city through downtown to Cal Poly and back every day. And out there on streets like Broad Street, for example, where I live, but streets like Foothill and other places, that's where we've seen some of the bicycle deaths in the community, including, quite tragically, a number of students over the last decade. The city has something called a Vision Zero program, where the intent is to have zero traffic deaths. Unfortunately, those numbers have been going up. And I don't know if they're disproportionately students, but it always feels that way every time there's the death of a student. And so I want that number to be zero, right? And so I want to continue to do some of the things we've begun in terms of making our streets safer. So that's going to be a priority for me. The housing and homeless situation is probably the one I hear the most when I'm out talking to folks in the community. So that's going to be an important one. We've made some progress last year in reducing our homeless count in the city of SLO, but this is you've got to keep your eye on the ball on this issue. So we have to be very vigilant and continue to implement and strengthen these programs we've put in place to assist folks who do not have housing to get the support services and to get ultimately into permanent housing. So maybe I'll stop there. I could mention climate change, but that's my day job as a professor of city and regional planning. My specialty is in climate change. I've taught an elective over the years on climate action planning. I'm teaching a studio right now where we're working with a city in South Los Angeles to develop a climate action plan for them. So that's very important to me, and it's what I do every day as a professor, but I'll be bringing that knowledge and skill to the City Council.
Absolutely, and it sounds like your kind of vision once elected would be to find ways to make the hybrid between the local residents and the college residents of this town more affordable, provide more housing for those underprivileged people, for finding for safer transportation methods. Again, as a bike commuter, definitely a big importance to me, just because I know there's a lot of interesting people that drive and don't notice cyclists.
That's right.
So yeah, that sounds all amazing. So I guess kind of pivoting away from those kind of issues, what would you like our local community to know about you personally?
About me personally? You know, something particularly in the context of Cal Poly, and again, my experience with students, one thing that I'm always particularly proud of myself, I'm actually a first-generation college student, and in order to go to college, I was dependent on Pell Grant, and I would work one or sometimes even two jobs. So I'm very proud to have put myself basically through college. When I got to college, you know, my parents hadn't been to college. I really didn't understand what college was about, or I didn't understand how to be successful in college, and I kind of had to learn the hard way. But all that's really stuck with me in terms of thinking about the experience of young people as they come out of high school and are, you know, taking that next step in their life, and how to make that next step, and what kinds of information and support would be helpful for them. So that really informs who I am personally and how I think about the world. It also meant I developed a very good work ethic as a young person, which continues today. I like to work. I work a lot. I like to solve complex problems. So those are some things to note about me. I also, and one of the reasons I made a choice to run for city council as well is I've been very bothered for a while now about the tone of politics, particularly in the country. It's not too bad here on the Central Coast, but certainly nationally it's become very counterproductive, very destructive in many ways. And so I wanted to run for office and bring civility to governance. You know, I try to treat people with respect even when I disagree with them. I like to talk to people who don't agree with me and learn about them, and, you know, how they think and what they care about and how they're making the decisions that they're making, to try to better understand them and think about how maybe collaboratively we can work together to solve problems. So that's another important thing about how I think about and approach problems. You know, show respect, try to work collaboratively, but I'm also prepared to make you know, tough decisions when tough decisions need to be made.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you touched on a little bit too, but why should people vote for you?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One is my experience. So I've been a city and regional planner for over 30 years. This is a key aspect of what you do when you're on the city councils. You deal with issues of transportation and land use and housing and open space and parks and recreation. Those are all things that are within the field of city and regional planning. I also served for 2 terms on the City of San Luis Obispo Planning Commission, including chairing the City Planning Commission. That was a few years ago, but when I was on the Planning Commission, we saw a lot of big projects for San Luis Obispo, downtown Court Street project, Orchid area and Marguerite area specific plans, which are now where we're seeing a lot of housing development. And the Costco, I think the Target came through when I was on Planning Commission. So I've got a lot of experience dealing with city business. I also served on something called the Local Revenue Measure Advisory Committee. It was really about taxes and how the city's budget and financing works and how we fund all the great things that we do in the city. So all that, I think that experience speaks for itself. And then my passion, my commitment to work for all community members of the city of San Luis Obispo is another thing that I would argue, or I would make the case that that's why you should vote for me, is that kind of approach to how I do governance.
Fantastic. And I guess our kind of last question that I wanted to ask you today, if you had to give a message to the San Luis Obispo community, what would it be?
What would it be? Other than the one I just gave, right? The pitch. One thing I always, when you run for city council, one thing that a lot of folks want to come and talk to you about problems, issues, challenges, which I love to talk about, right? Because I like solving problems. But I always think it's important to take a step back. I work in communities all over California. I have worked in communities all over California. I travel a fair amount, and as a professional planner, you really come to understand how other communities do business as well. And the reality is San Luis Obispo is an incredible place. I mean, we are privileged to live here. It's a beautiful place. Even though it's a town of almost 50,000, it feels very much like a small town. People know each other. They help each other. The amount of community nonprofits that are out there doing great service in the community is off the charts in San Luis Obispo. We have Cal Poly, an incredible university here. It's really a fantastic place to live, and SLO is doing well. People like to talk about the downtown and some of the struggles with the downtown, and that's an issue, and it's something we've got to be vigilant about and work on. But our vacancy rate is half that of Santa Barbara. So on the whole, I think we're doing really well, and so I like to celebrate San Luis Obispo, talk about what a wonderful place it is, remind ourselves that we can have a great life here. It's possible to have a great life here. But then, of course, yes, we've got to focus on, where are we struggling, where are people struggling, what issues can we do better on, and focus on those. So I think it's important to keep both of those things in mind. Yeah.
Well, those are all the questions I had for you today. Thank you so much again, Mike Boswell, for joining me here in our Swanson studio. So if you're looking for more information regarding Mike Boswell and the other candidates running for City Council and for Mayor interviewed today, you can visit mustangnews.net. And for Mustang News, I'm RJ Pollock.